I will say the Darksaber went out like a little bitch.
Yeah.
This legendary weapon, and Moff Gideon says, "Give it to me. I've rightfully won it." She's like, "You haven't won it yet." And he just goes, "Well, then fine." Crimp. What? What? Dude, it was encouraging to get your text, and thank God you don't do spoilers. Because I had not watched it yet. I had come in from a tour. And so you're just like, fucking awesome. And I was like, that I expected from Picard from you.
Here goes nothing.
Wait, what do you mean nothing?
But that was for Mandalorian, so I was like, damn, Finale, I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, those last 2 episodes are great, but that final one was, because I was on such pins and needles, because like we said in the last show, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen, or is somebody going to die?
It's true. We didn't know what they were leading to other than broad strokes of obviously like, oh, the Mandalorians, will they stay together? What's Moff Gideon's plan? All these things were like, we don't know what's up.
Yeah. Like I didn't know. There was a whole thing of the theory of the second spy that everybody was convinced there had to be another spy.
And we never got another spy.
Nope. People pointed out that there was the spies was a biblical reference, and the storyline of that particular book in the Bible actually kind of mirrors a lot what's going on in that.
I would expect that from a Star Trek because it's based in human Earth.
Yeah.
Future. But Star Wars has no connection to us. I've never met a Wookiee. Have you, Chad? Have you met a Wookiee?
No.
Not even in those wild years in New York?
Right. No.
I was in a club. There was a Wookiee. Maybe I chatted. That's all I'm saying.
So there was that tension. It's like, okay, is when Axe, we saw Axe leave in the middle of the battle the previous episode, and I thought, okay, he's going to turn tide, he's going to turn tail, whatever the expression is at some point. And because even when he got to the ship and he kicked everybody out, say everybody out, it's like, oh, now he's going to blow them all up from the ship or something.
That's what I thought so too.
He kept waiting, and he never changed sides. And I was like, that's okay, cool. And then I kept waiting for the armor to like thwack somebody beside her as they're flying around, and that didn't happen.
That didn't happen either.
Great. The other thing was too is like all these people, all these things that the people were speculating could happen to people to show up, like Boba Fett will show up to help out.
Well, I'm glad that didn't happen.
So yeah, the New Republic might swoop in to save the day, which seemed more likely based on things that happened already.
Yeah, I would have minded some X-Wings.
So that would have been cool, but I was also really happy that this was something that the Mandalorians managed
just handled on their own.
Which was what they needed for the overall character arc of them as a people in the show, so I was really happy with that. There was a lot of speculation that Mando might die in the season because he was already so much in the background, and
then there was all the supposed behind the scenes stuff of like I'm just too busy, and I am tired of wearing a bucket on my head.
So when they finally, number one, he's got some great moments in this episode that I've been waiting for all season. And it's like, when is he going to kick some ass?
I don't even want to get into that. I mean, second time Star Wars has gone to Force Walls, duel scene, but this one fit Mando, and the whole thing of him just going, R5, drop the next one. And he starts with no weapons, and as he's kicking their ass, he is collecting weapons to take on the next ones. I was like, God damn it. It was awesome.
That was Favreau at his best. This
good.
Whole episode was like just Favreau. He was really
just moments. It gave us a lot of moments, and as a story it hangs together. It still has questions, but it also hits the reset button at the end as to what the series will become from here on out. But it gave us it was Favreau again dipping into his deep childhood nerdery of playing with his action figures, because we finally got not one guy or a couple guys with jetpacks. We got fucking jetpack dogfighting. We got literally Bo-Katan with the Darksaber flying alongside the armorer with her hammer, and I'm like going, God damn it, it's a comic book panel, which I'm like, I want that all day long. I will say the Darksaber went out like a little bitch. This legendary weapon, and Moff Gideon says, give it to me, I've rightfully won it. She's like, you haven't won it yet. And he just goes, well, then fine. Crimp. What?
Yeah, and I understand why they did that, because it that was another thing yet bolstered Bo-Katan's character even more, because she had some insecurity over whether she was really worthy to.
Right.
And this was kind of this whole season was her realizing, oh yeah, I am meant to be the leader.
Yeah, sometimes symbols, and this is also true of the entire arc of the season, sometimes the way, something so entrenched, has to change. It has to evolve and move, or else you die. You become a fossil. So in a weird way, it's like, we don't need Excalibur. Excalibur is too rigid a symbol, and it needs to be, or if you want to go Last Jedi on it, the Force needs to not be just the Skywalker family. They need to not always be the chosen ones. That the Force finds its way into lots of different people, which I thought was a great message. So I thought the message of this was exactly that. Like, Bo-Katan is kind of like going, we're a new thing. We are parts of the old and part of a new thing. And yeah, I'm leading us. I'm going to do it. We don't need a fucking Darksaber. We don't even need the planet Mandalore, but I do like seeing like the Forge is relit and all that's kick ass. And then I love seeing Mando do an Iris Out in an Andy Griffith show pose, sitting back on the porch while Grogu is playing with frogs and not eating them. Again, Grogu's growing.
Yeah.
Grogu's growing.
Yeah. He did have some good moments those last two.
Grogu can understand so much complicated shit, but can't say a single word.
Yeah. That was one moment that was a little bit frustrating, but I understand why they're waiting on that, because now we know there is a season 4 coming, and I'd kind of like it.
Of a very successful program that's made a lot of money?
I have a feeling that next season there's going to be a lot more. A lot of stuff was, I think, postponed in this season because Pedro was not available. I think that's probably one of the main reasons. And in addition to the fact that Favreau had to sacrifice 2 episodes to Book of Boba Fett.
It is done.
If they're following the video game for Last of Us, he won't be required for much of season 2.
Much longer, Spoilers. Sorry, people.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. So maybe that's coming, but I kept thinking, thank God he's still okay, And
of course.
Speaking of references too, there have been many moments throughout this show, not just the season, but the entire Mandalorian series, that seem to borrow, not directly, but very clearly inspired by the games. And I think that Favreau has played all these, Filoni as well, I'm sure.
But you're going to lose me here, because I really haven't played that many. So what did they pull?
Well, the last scene, and this may not have been intentional, but it surely gave me vibes of, again, Star Wars Galaxies, which I talked about episodes ago. There was player housing in that game. So if you made enough money, you could go and put a house somewhere. But because you couldn't, where the cities were, you couldn't be any too close to the actual game cities that were there. But the landscape was so huge. There were just miles and miles of frontier on every planet in the game. So you had to go out in the middle of nowhere to put your house down. So that's what it looked like. He's out in the middle of nowhere with a single house, which is exactly the way it was in that
he's
game.
Again, he's on Navarro. Just that was the plot promised to him. Again, I mean, the season will still get flack for being very uneven, because it was. But its high points were very, very good and in keeping with all the other seasons. And it's not like they weren't paying attention. Like, even if Dave or John weren't writing the episode, everyone was tying shit together. So they dropped these little things about, your people can stay here. And the people like, no, we're reclaiming Mandalore at the end. He's like, oh, all right. But you know what? We still need some sort of bounty hunter sheriff dude. He's like, all right. He's literally a marshal. He's become it's Gunsmoke, and I'm all about it.
Yeah,
I love that. Gunsmoke with Grogu.
But I do hope, and this is, whatever, but I expressed my annoyance at how the New Republic is being portrayed so far.
Expressed a lot of annoyance, just in general.
But it was funny to me that in that scene where he goes back to meet with Carson Teva and makes that proposal to him, so hey, let's strike a deal, and it's like Carson Teva was on the job, like the first few episodes of the season, he was out there, working the case and trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
He says, man, thanks for taking care of that for us. As they're just lounging around at a bar. It's like, You could say we're really busy, like, thanks.
Look, cops. Am I right? Cops.
Yeah. It's like,
that really took a load off. Thanks, Mando.
So, and and I'd already gone over my complaints with this show, obviously the season, I should say, that there was, both Din and Grogu kind of had I guess they're both named Din now. Din Grogu and Din Djarin.
That's right.
Had to take a back seat to Bo-Katan's story and the overarching just Mandalorian story of them reclaiming home, which is fine. It was pretty obvious that that's the direction they were going with the season anyway. The last, with the set, it was kind of set up in season 2 that this was coming.
But we still had to deal with that one episode, man.
Oh, I know. We'll get to that. That's
my main problem.
We'll get to that in for a second. But yeah, there wasn't much of a character arc for Grogu or Din Djarin in the show until that last episode.
The deepening of their bond, and now it's literally explicit. It's a father-son bond. That's just adorable. Come on.
And otherwise, it's like, there was that one Jack Black episode. My other complaint.
Jack Black. I don't blame Lizzo. No, even though Lizzo is not a good actor.
Writing,
that was a really dumb episode. And if you're going to, spend your co-star or cameo budget and get Christopher Lloyd and Jack Black and Lizzo in an episode, make it a good one, man. I mean, that was just dumb. And I hated the droid bar. John was like, I thought it was great. John actually loves that episode. He actually thought it was great. And I was like, are you being ironic? And again, everyone's entitled. I can't say my opinion's the correct one, but he's like, no, I really thought it was a great change of pace and a real nice breather. I was like, it was stupid. It was Scooby-Doo stupid.
Exactly. The plot made no sense at all.
And I don't like a droid bar because it just makes no sense.
So your toaster gets a day off and gets to go to a bar. Like,
I mean, I remember in
the droids don't take breaks; they shut themselves off.
In Clone Wars, there is an episode which I don't know if you remember, but C-3PO and R2-D2. R2-D2 once again has like a secret mission or like a thing he's supposed to be doing, but C-3PO gets. No, actually, R2 gets wooed into a droid spa.
It doesn't get more soothing than that, does it?
Where they're giving oil baths, and they're like, you have a lot of scarring. You could look like you used to when you were first constructed. And it's droids kind of giving like beauty makeovers to droids. And it's C-3PO is like going, where is he? We have to... Damn it. And he goes and finds him. He's like, look at you. And I mean, it's funny. It was, and for that, again, I'm not saying the cartoon can't be as serious or dramatic, because it was certainly sometimes even more so than some of the live action stuff. But that concept of droids having sentience, which I love, that's definitely a Star Wars thing. But them going like, I really could use an oil bath. I really could use a little touch me up over here. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So I didn't like it. I didn't like that episode. There was almost nothing I liked about it.
It feels like they're going a little bit too far outside the lines of what droids are, because there was, I forget the name of the droid that's in Andor, but he's clearly a very emotional droid, which is not, we've seen, C-3PO is emotional. So we've seen emotions from droids before, but when the way he deals with it is staying on his charging pad. It's like, no, I have to recharge. Like, you've been charging all day. I'm not done yet. That was more within the confines of what a droid. Droid is handling his stress in a droid
PTSD,
way, not going to a bar. And getting drunk on Nepenthe.
I need to go to plus Nepenthe. I mean, I'm like, come on, John, are you the only person who's ever read any mythology? Or stop with that. It's like, again, let's pull something out of human myth. Saying the guy watching a show where it started with a movie with a guy named Skywalker. I mean, come on. All right. I got to stop saying like, there should be no Earth type terms in this. What? It's all Earth type terms. I should shut up. But anyway, so I really enjoyed it. I was very satisfied. I wasn't expecting huge cameos because one thing this season had expanded so greatly with so much of the Mandalorian stuff and the focus on Bo-Katan, who's a character I really like, played by an actress I really like. So I was like, I'm not feeling let down by no more CG Luke. You know, I was like, it's okay. It's okay. Let's dole that out very lightly.
Yeah, I think we almost got too much of that in that second episode in the Book of Boba Fett. It's like when those first couple of scenes we saw him, was, oh, this is great. And they just kept cutting back to him and back to him. It was like, this is cool, but guys, just tone,
I think we're going to see some of Ahsoka. I think we're going to see some of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Ahsoka. When does it start? Tomorrow? Does it start tomorrow? Yeah, a lot of stuff is coming out that I'm, of course, very excited about. I'm hoping my job picks up so I can go see some stuff in the theaters because was it next week? No, 2 weeks from now, we got Guardians 3.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
My only other, maybe not my only other.
I've seen your notebooks. You've got a lot more.
Pacing sometimes was a problem.
Yeah.
Beyond the characters, being the two main characters being sidelined. There was a couple things where pacing just like an otherwise fun episode where what's it one called The Foundling, where the kid gets dragged off by the pterodactyl creature.
Yeah.
And they go and save him. When that first scene where Bo runs to her ship and they're all flying after, it's like, this is cool. But then they realize it's going to be a little harder to save him, so they have to pull back and regroup, and then
they have to do the the mountain climbing thing, and it's a bonding thing. It's like, look how far Din will go or Bo-Katan will go to save like one of the
absolutely essential for where they were headed with the tribes bonding and all that stuff. But there's no way that kid's still alive now at this point. And of course, the way I think they should have done it. You don't
know how that big thing eats. Maybe it lets that thing sit in its nest for a while.
It was just funny to me. It was almost like I was complaining about the pacing in the first episode of PICARD where they get the message and they go to a bar.
Yes, yeah.
The first
apparently Beverly's in trouble.
Yeah.
Excuse me, waitress.
Well, yeah. Another round. I think what might have made a little more sense pacing wise is like they do save the kid at first, but they get chased off by the mother, pterodactyl creature, whatever, and because they did establish this keeps happening. This isn't the first time they've almost lost a child or lost a child to this creature. So then Bo could say, "No, we take care of this now. We're going to end this threat," and then the rest of the episode is them taking a little bit longer to actually figure out how to conquer this. Or
I was joking with Jerry and John about like the last couple episodes, or like wherever the Mandalorians go, but then it's also true of the entire Star Wars universe. I don't know. Is there a planet anywhere in the Star Wars universe that doesn't have ginormous kaiju that are constantly just springing up and eating people? I'm like, where can you go in that galaxy where you're not going to sit down and go, this is a perfect place to start a oh shit, what is that?
That was the one thing, and that's
I guess it was the second to last. Lizards and big old whatever's going. Rawr!
That second to last episode where they get chased into the mines by that huge kaiju creature just appears out of nowhere. Apparently, just for that reason, which they were already going there. So it's like I'm not really sure what the point of that was.
That'd be great if they just looked at the creature like going, no, "We're already going there."
Was there another pacing problem I was going to? I guess that was
I don't know.
I think I already. Never mind.
Did you watch every episode, as I know that you did for the previous 2 seasons, wearing your Mandalorian helmet?
No. Shut up, Brendan.
But that is the way. You're no longer Mandalorian because you're not wearing it right now.
Yeah.
I look forward to where they're going. I have to admit that I'm starting to see all of Star Wars. It's like the MCU. They're following that model. I'm starting to see it all as one thing. So even though I'm excited about individual projects, it is all just of a piece. So we did mistake the Acolyte for the one that we're talking about. But everything they announced at Celebration, I'm looking forward to, almost as if it's just further chapters. It's just further chapters, which I like. I like that whole concept. Just like Guardians 3, I'm totally excited for as a thing. But it is continuing to build that huge story. I'm like, great. I can't wait to see the High Evolutionary brought into the MCU. I'm like, come on. If you had told me as a 12-year-old that you'd be seeing movies with Thanos and the High Evolutionary in it, or that the Ebon Blade of the Black Knight would be revealed at the end of a fucking Eternals movie, I would have gone, you're bullshitting me. Because you only think of, like, if they're ever going to do movies of these characters, it's going to be the big names, which of course they've done as well. But it's just like, wow. This is a sideline, and I promise we'll get right back. There was a video that someone posted that was just like a viral video of a family at the Marvel part of Disneyland, and it was obviously a mother holding the camera, so you don't see her, but you hear her going, oh, look, and it's her kid, and it's this little black kid wearing just a t-shirt, and the performers aren't there, but they're in front of the Avengers Academy building that's in the park. And you see the kid waving up, and the mother's just focused on the kid. Then she does do the thing up, and it's the park performer of Sam Wilson, Captain America, and he's way up at the top. And he just kind of calls down to him a little bit, and the little kid does like a little salute.
Aww.
And then Sam Wilson comes down. And there's like this whole 3-minute thing of just Captain America talking to this kid.
Wow.
And he's got the shield, and he's like going, and literally they pay those people to be those characters. So whoever that Sam Wilson guy is, my hat's off, because it's the most adorable thing. He's like going, he goes, you don't need a shield. He goes, are you good? Are you kind to everybody? And it's like literally a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and the little kid's like, yeah. He goes, then that's it. He goes, like, give me your superhero pose. And they're doing that together. And then the mom is just laughing through the whole thing. She's loving it. And they do multiple poses of like salutes and the hero pose. And I'm just like going, oh my God, my heart grew 3 times the size watching that. Anyway.
That's really cool.
So we should talk about Picard.
Yes, we should.
It was okay.
It was, I think, it was almost everything I was expecting that the finale would be. And it was like they were kind of, I'd say Terry Matalas kind of shoehorned him into a sort of a little bit of a cliched finale scene,
yes.
Which I loved every second of it, so I'm not complaining. But he actually very cheekily leaned into it, the fact that there was a really strong similarity to Return of the Jedi and those final set pieces.
Yeah.
To the point that they gave Data a line straight out of the script that Lando goes, well, here goes nothing, when they first dive into the
oh my God, I didn't even make that.
Data says the same thing at the exact same moment.
Here goes nothing.
Wait, what do you mean nothing?
Hang on!
Well, I will say,
wink.
You actually pegged it. I think that last episode was amazingly great. I will say everything leading up to it seemed more complex. Mm-hmm. So it did make the finale, which also a chunk of the finale, not that I'm complaining, is all epilogue. You know, in other words, so they do solve everything pretty quick, pretty easy. There's moments of like, well, we're not coming back. This is our sacrifice, but I'm not leaving them behind. And it's Worf and Riker who, again, get the best lines in there. I'm like, them sparring off each other is so great. Yeah. He's like, then we'll make it a threesome. And he's like going, do you even hear yourself? That's great. But so they do that while we, the audience, know it's not going to go that dark, which is a little bit of a shame. And you just have the Borg Queen show up, again, voiced by Alice Krige, who just has that, even now, there's just a thing in her, even though that's not her physically in the suit, I'm sitting there going like, wow, her voice is just perfect for that character, always was. Mm-hmm. I did think that there would be some mention or tie-in to the, is Alison Pill, is she a separate Borg Queen?
It's a whole other breed of Borg, yeah, that she created. Because
I thought maybe that would play in too, because she was, a big part of seasons 1 and 2, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Rafi and Seven are really the only carryovers.
Well, if you think about it, like, and at the end of that season 2, and that, again, I did not like season 2, but I did like that whole idea of this new breed of Borg being born from those 2 characters.
Yeah.
That Borg Queen was from an alternate timeline. It wasn't the original one. So at that point, when they finally merged into one and they're working together, they go off and they start a new empire by building other Borg by people who join them willfully.
Yes.
So it's a completely different thing.
Yes, but I just thought they could have used that.
Yeah.
Like that would have been great for, it's like, I am building my empire. It's like, well, your empire is dead. We're the new one or something would have been nifty. But it's okay. It's fine. What they gave us was, again, it was a little on the nose and a little safe. And we had our second scene. This is a little bit of a writer's complaint. Our second scene of a major emotional coming together in a hug in a vague mind space, because we had Data and Lore unify in the positronic brain space, and then we have Jack and Picard like have their father-son moment in his mind, where they connect via Borg connection. And not that that's a bad device, it's not, it's just twice in one season is like, oh, right, can we find some other way? But seeing Jean-Luc Picard willingly hook himself back up to the Borg I'm like, god damn. And I love where they did that nice juxtaposition of, they have their moments like, we're father and son, we're getting out of this thing, but when you cut, and it looks very cheery and they're hugging, and then when they cut to the real world and you see Jean-Luc Picard going, ah!
He's just sitting there in pain.
I'm like going, it's not pleasant. It's pleasant on the inside, but he's like, you're good shit, god damn it. So that was good. I mean, I got really no complaints, and it totally sets up a whole new series. That was their whole reason for doing it.
Which hopefully actually gets greenlit now. It's still kind of up in the air because he has to.
Oh, really?
Alex Kurtzman still holds the keys to the kingdom at this point.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of up to him, I guess. I'm sure there's probably more board members or something who have to sign on, but it would be really stupid of them to not just let Terry Matalas go and do his thing with this new show.
I gotta say one thing at the end also. None of these are nitpicks, but the whole thing of and it's so great. The Titan is now the Enterprise. Of course. And Seven's the captain. Oh, yes. Her girlfriend, Starfleet's regulations have gotten real lax. It's like, my first in command is also my romantic partner. But that's awesome. And then the whole thing with Jack going, where am I supposed to be? And she goes, right here next to me as my very nondescript friend. I'm like, what the hell is that? Where it's like, you don't have a job. Just sit there and look pretty. I was like, give him something. I thought they were going to make him med or captain or like doctor.
He's special count. He's like kind of like has the role that Troy had on the original.
But I mean, the reason you have a counselor is for all those like emotional things, and that's a counselor. He has no training in that. Well, and he doesn't have betazoid telepathic power.
Feeling that maybe they didn't really, if this is true, they didn't really do much to point it out. But I would imagine he still has some abilities left over from the Borg thing. So maybe,
what's interesting though is that his abilities were, and that was very cool. The idea that he's not or just a receiver, he's a transmitter. So the sad thing is, I would not want a counselor whose power is I can make you do things.
Well, I don't think you can do that anymore because that was contingent on that bit of code that was put into people by the transporters, and they've undid all of that now.
Okay,
as they showed.
You promise?
So I think I don't think he can take over people's minds anymore. But
that was very Jericho of the new Teen Titans.
Empathic. Who knows? I don't know. Sorry, what were you saying?
I said that's very Jericho of the new Teen Titans.
Oh, really?
That's me nerding out. That's very 80s. There was the character Jericho whose power was, if he locked eyes with you, he could take you over, but they went a step farther in the comics. He would become immaterial, and he would be in that person. And then whenever he would let control go, he would pop back out. Kind of like Dead Man. A little bit like Dead Man without being dead.
Oh, okay.
Where he's like going, oh, don't worry. And just like, hey, security guard, what? And then he's like, hi, guys, I'm now in the security guard. Doop, 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 doop. He would always do that song. I'm not sure why. They called that Jericho's theme. Doop, 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 doop. Oh, we know which one's Jericho because he's doing the song. He actually showed up in the show Titans, which I did watch the first 2 seasons of, and they've just come back. They did work in a Jericho plotline. That show tries to be a good DC show. It tries.
Yeah. I like the first. Anyway. So, yeah, I had this theory, which I talked about last week, that maybe they might, the chance that they might resurrect Captain Shaw using Seven's old nanites that she hasn't used since the Voyager series. Which she only used, I think, as far as I know, she only used that once to resurrect Neelix, which turned out to be really traumatic experience for him. So they didn't resurrect Shaw, and once it moved on from there, and she's being the captain of the Titan, or what's still called the Titan at that point, I understood why. If they had resurrected Shaw at that point, it would have taken away from her growth as a character in that.
Sure. I mean, Shaw served his purpose, as awesome a character as he was. And he, again, other than just the dropping of F-bombs and other curse words, this was such a solid Star Trek, continuum that he was a breath of fresh air, which is why people want to see him different, because he's not the typical Starfleet officer of any kind that we've ever seen before. And it's not being an asshole for asshole's sake. He has literally PTSD and all kinds of bitterness. And you're like, that makes him very interesting. But also he got his arc. He realizes the strengths of those people that have become legends, and he follows them, and he believes again. And then he dies believing in his second in command, who he had been shitting on because she was former Borg. That was great. And now she's just Captain 7, man.
Yeah.
Captain 7.
Well, they also kind of indicate that, he did have a hard time with her because of his Borg, what happened to him in the past. But we find out at the end when she's meeting with Tuvok that he had recognized her abilities from the beginning, even though he didn't personally necessarily like serving with her. But he was like, she needs to be captain. So
she's loyal. She's great.
Before anything happened in the series, she was already lined up to be promoted.
I do love that when we see Tuvok again. I mean, when you get the epilogue and it's all just sort of narrated and like that, it was. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it because everything else would have been so grim. But I love that idea of like. Turns out that everyone that they had, especially the higher ups that they had duplicated, they kept them. They're okay. Hey, everybody, Tuvok's okay. Yeah. We found him. We freed him. He's like, well, I'm very glad I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Thanks for freeing me.
Yeah. There was only just one little passing line of dialogue that they mentioned that. But they don't say where they were. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
No, yeah, it is. It is that tossed off where it's like, and then it turns out everybody was okay.
Right. I kind
of
wish
for that one. Oh, I'm sure you, Mr. Deep Dive Star Trek knowledge, you probably did know that the lady who was the captain of the Enterprise had briefly been of the Enterprise in the original series.
Shelby.
I mean, the Next Generation.
Yeah.
I did not know Shelby. I mean, I certainly remember that episode after I found out. I was like, oh, yeah. But I'm sure you were watching that going, fuck, Shelby's back?
I didn't pick up on it
Same
immediately.
Actor?
At first, I thought that she was the head of Starfleet from the first season, who says, the sheer fucking hubris, who's giving Picard a dressing down in that first season. I thought it was her. So, and then later I was like, wait, oh no. Oh, that was her. Okay. So that's why. And it made more sense because she was her specialty when she's first introduced in Best of Both Worlds is that she's a Borg. She's been studying the Borg for years. And that's why she's there in the first place. So then there's that line of Picard going, the irony of her promoting something that's so Borg-like. She hates the Borg.
And then at the very end, we find out that is it United Federation president or Earth president is Chekhov?
Chekhov, not the Chekhov.
No,
but,
a Chekhov, like the grandson.
Right.
I think he says, like my grandfather used to say.
Yeah, people say I think he's supposed to be a son. It would make more sense if he was his grandson, though, because it's anyway. So yeah, Anton Chekhov, which of course is the same name as the guy who wrote the Cherry Orchard,
but also Anton Yelchin.
There you go.
Yeah, what a nice tribute. And I mean, that is nice. I like the fact we didn't see him because no offense to our good friend.
Enough of that. Enough of actors playing their ancestors and their
there is that. The voice was enough, and I like the fact that he wasn't doing the Russian accent. He was like allowed finally to play a Chekhov, where the ancestral accent has kind of gone away.
Yeah,
I loved all that, all the Easter eggy stuff. Of course, I'm totally into the fact that they're back on the old bridge, all that stuff. Yeah. Now, here's a question for you: do you think at the end, because they're all still around, God bless them, do you think, and I assume Geordie's gone back to the museum and done stuff like that, do you think that Jean-Luc is going to go back to his quasi-Romulan time-jumping watcher girl lady?
I thought it was funny that they didn't.
She really had nothing to do with the end.
Yeah, we saw the first episode. Never see her again. She's never mentioned again.
I don't think he and Beverly have struck up again a romantic thing, but they are definitely a family, which is nice.
Yes.
And as far as a romantic interest for the elderly gentleman, she seemed to be posited as that, and the fact that she's been watching him, that his entire bloodline is this incredibly important thing. And you're like, but she doesn't show up at one of the biggest parts of his life.
Again, it's like, I think Terry really...
Did he just ditch what they had given him? He's like, I don't want to deal with that.
He did that. I mean, he does refer to season 1 more often, but season 2 is like barely ever touched on. In fact, I didn't catch this. Somebody else pointed this out in another video, that the Excelsior, which is the only ship before the Titan that manages to reassert control, and then they immediately get blown up. You know, when the Borg are taking over Starfleet, and you see it on. You don't see their faces, but you just see them on a little map. All the ships turn. Oh no, they've got us. Oh, please tell my wife I beep, and they're dead.
Yeah.
The Excelsior, I'd forgotten this. That's the ship that Elnor was stationed on at the end of season 2.
Oh no!
So Terry Matalas just blew him up without even. That's assumed anyway. It's like, wow. The other thing was too is like another.
I didn't much care for that.
Another finger he shot at season 2 was like, you know, they make a big deal out of Q dying at the end of it. That's the end of that season. But he's just back. He's like, oh, come on, I'm Q. I
mean, they're godlike
so linearly. Yeah. Which I was like, that's all he had to say is like, yeah, Q, he exists outside of space and time.
Actually, we probably did see
at the same time.
That's exactly it. Yeah, don't think so linearly. That's pretty awesome.
He's literally Schrodinger's cat.
Oh,
so I was like, I mean, cool.
It's okay to do all that to some degree, but yeah, they're still dangling, which I guess if there was ever another season, there are things they could pick up on. And that may be why we didn't get Alison Pill's, character back. Is that he's like going, I don't want to deal with that mess. I want to deal with classic Borg Queen.
The only reference to it, I think,
Borg Queen 1.0.
Came from Todd Stashwick's character. Captain Shaw says, like, forget about what happened on the so-and-so. He refers to that ship. Where that happened. He's like, yeah, that's not real Borg. The real Borg are still out there.
Wow.
Anyway, speaking of Todd Stashwick, I didn't really know much about him before.
I've seen him in things.
I'd seen him in things for sure, but I didn't know anything about him. But he's a super cool, just nerdy to the max.
I read a couple of quotes from him. Where he's like going, dude, kill me off in 5 minutes. Just let me be in that uniform.
Yeah.
He goes, I didn't even need lines. I would have just walked around and been in a red shirt. Yeah. He was so nerded out by being in Star Trek.
And I first started figuring this out when I was looking up interviews of him. I want to see what this guy is like. And the first interview I found was him. He's on a Zoom call or something with, his nerd stuff behind him, like this, but he's got shelves of toys that are still in their original packaging, alongside a Pac-Man arcade game.
Nice,
the whole big thing.
Total nerd.
And then I found that he's completely hardcore into D&D. which he played.
Then
as a
he
kid,
and Henry Cavill need to do some project together.
Yeah.
I love the rise of nerds who are not who aren't defined by that, who go on to have like successful careers and other things, but then are not afraid to go like, yeah, I'm really glad that I'm the CEO of this company, but look behind me, I finally got that badass Batmobile, the one that they had just briefly limited edition, and I'm like, fuck yeah. I would do the same thing. Get that money coming in, forget about it.
Oh yeah.
Mark Hamill spent that first Star Wars check on Detective Comics number 27. That I love it. I love it.
It did make me think of Mark, because he's the other, huge just nerd who serves the whims of nerds.
I wouldn't say they represent us. They're just they're brothers in arms of a kind. Yeah. And you sit there going like, unless you're wanting to follow their careers, you can just sit there going like, nerds can do whatever the fuck and not be ashamed of that, because you do find out, oh, I saw this news article about this is the bad side of it. Do you hear about that guy who was a notorious pack rat, and his family lived in middle, like they're sort of middle class, didn't have a lot of money, and then when he passed away, the family discovered that he had been just spending all the money, family money, on comics, and that his collection is one of the they're going to be auctioning off as one of the best ever. Like it was, he had his own like bunker and stuff, and I mean that's not what you should do. Take care of your family, ladies and gentlemen. But they're like going, we knew that he had a problem. We know that he bought a lot of comics. We just didn't know he was buying them of this quality and that quantity. So it's one of these collections where it's like they're in this little house, and then like in the garage it's like ching, 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 ching. It's the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just crates and crates. I wouldn't be that guy. Come on. Take care of your family. Come on.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Foof.
Foof indeed.
Foof indeed.
So,
hey, this may be a title. One more thing about Todd Stashwick before I move on.
He's cool.
He's cool. But one thing I found out in these interviews I watched of him, that, and the article I sent you, actually, I don't know if you read it, at the end, they reveal that what they're hoping to do with Star Trek Legacy, if it does get their green light, that they have a plan for Captain Shaw to come back. So he said this, both Todd Stashwick and Terry Matalas have been quoted saying this. So, and I'm like, yes, but then I'm like, wait a minute, how are they? I mean, how they do it doesn't really matter. I'm just wondering.
Don't think so linearly.
But yeah, Captain
Q
Seven
could pop him back in for no reason.
But Seven is a captain. It's like, what is he going to do if they bring him back?
Not be a captain. Remember, he was an engineer first.
That's what
that's what he loved to do.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe he'd go back and be the engineer.
And that dynamic of like, oh, I'm taking orders from the person who used to be my number one.
Yeah.
He's a welcome presence. I mean, generally speaking, even if they do some cheesy and say this is just his brother or whatever, I don't give a shit, because he's a welcome presence and a good, different kind of character. I do like that Star Trek, where they've left it with Picard, which is most contemporary as Star Trek goes, is that they are letting it evolve slightly. I don't think they need to lean on much more adultifying of it, because Star Trek should always be, it should be accessible. I really don't think that making it for adults, which is kind of the problem that American comics went through in the 80s into the 90s,
right?
Which was like, oh, we're leaving behind the next generation who should be reading about Superman and Batman. But now it's like, well, Superman just killed some people and Batman is eating children. And so maybe let's not, maybe that's not for the 7 and 8 year olds anymore. But I think Star Trek needs to find that balance. But I do like they're loosening up, which was something that I talked about when I was talking about my idea, that Star Trek Legacy thing I had. My pitch letter that I wrote for it, which I didn't send you, I just sent you the script. But the pitch letter, I was basically saying that it's like the sense of fun was missing. The sense of adventure was missing, because a lot of Star Trek becomes just sort of administrative. So I like the fact that we have characters now. Like, why would you have? I like the way Seven says, I'm out. I'm sure you guys are about to fire me because I'm not the kind of person you want captaining your starships. It's like, I'm kind of a rebel, and it's now that particular Enterprise is all rebels. You've got all three of the main people being people that were not Starfleet quality or definitely not play by the rules Starfleet. That's cool.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing. Get a little looser, get a little bit more back to an adventure story with, of course, the great morality tales that Star Trek is great at, but just liven it up because it's pretty stodgy. Yeah, and I like that about Strange New Worlds too. Even though it's a prequel, the characterization's there and the tone they're striking. I'm like, yes, that's it, man.
It's funny too because that is very much a Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman production, from what I understand. And those were the guys who were in charge of the first 2 seasons of Picard. So, like,
well, I think they also realized that tone needed to be specific to each show. Picard was not going to be done with that kind of tone because it's a Twilight.
They were trying to do something else.
Story,
right?
Something sweet and a little bit somber, and
Yeah. I kind of get the feeling that because of the feedback on the first 2 seasons was so negative, Kurtzman was like, I don't know. Hey, Terry, you finish this up. I'm out of here.
I don't know. Well,
I don't think he anticipated it being as huge of a hit as it is.
Yeah.
But who knows?
And I think, man, I really liked season 1 and I enjoyed season 2. It's not my favorite, but you seem to think they were like disasters.
The season 2, I really think was childishly written.
I guess we can't be friends anymore. Man,
the first season I thought had a lot of really cool ideas that it just kind of fell apart in the second half of the season. I talked about how I don't like the way that they brought Data back virtually just to kill him again, and there's a lot of things they did with the characters that didn't make any sense to me. The second season just seemed like a really bad episode of the A-Team or something. I'm like, what is going on here? And what does this have to do with Star Trek?
You don't like any of the stories where they go back to modern day Earth, do you?
No, I was totally on board for that. It's just that nothing the characters did in that season made any sense to me.
I have had enough of your stupid patronizing. And I've had enough.
Including Q, including Picard. It's like Picard had maybe 1 or 2 scenes. The only thing about that whole storyline I liked, which I already talked about, was the idea of Jurati bonding with the Borg Queen into this new thing. I think that was cool. But even there were many parts of that I just thought were just cartoonish to the extreme.
There was some. Yeah. No, I agree.
But Terry Matalas apparently agrees with me because he very obviously, very clearly doesn't even want to acknowledge that season.
Well, you can start doing your podcast with your best friend Terry. There's also just, even with season 2, for me, there's a lot of spillover still of the enjoyment of seeing these people on screen.
Sure.
Because the one thing that if you take all 3 seasons of Picard as one thing, how lucky are we that 3 decades later we get to return, and even at their weakest, and you believe season 2 is the weakest, and I agree it's the weakest, but even at that, we are getting new stories of those characters, and they are not shown to be feeble. It's not, you don't get the vibe of cash grab from any of them. I mean, it could be. There could be 1 or 2 of them like going, all right, I'll put on the fucking forehead for another, few years for some money. But you don't get that impression. It's a welcome homecoming. And I'm like, yeah, I'm there, even if, that was pretty dumb. Oh, I just watched an episode where 7 of 9 and Rafi are in a car chase in central LA. I'm like, yeah, it's not really what I want, but whatever. At least it's not Galactica 80 where they had flying motorcycles.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I brought that up only because we just did an episode, John and I, on his other podcast called The Action Shelf, which is bad action movies. We just did Megaforce from 1982. Do you remember that? Barry Bostwick, sci-fi kind of G.I. Joe thing.
No.
they're a secret military force, and it was directed by the guy Hal Needham who directed Smoking the Bandit. So it's all about stunts and fancy looking vehicles, which are just dressed up dirt bikes and dune buggies, but they have like cannons on them. You're like, ooh, it's so bad. It's so bad. But it does end with the lead character, Barry Bostwick, is like, I got to catch that plane. It's too late. And it's like, they've already taken off the cargo plane. He goes, not yet. And his cool modified bike starts to fly. He pushes the buttons and the wings come out and he flies his bike up into the plane. And it looks so bad. Flash Gordon came out in 1980. And the scenes of Flash on that sky bike are more convincing than 1982's Megaforce. And at one point he spins it in midair and it's just Barry Bostwick going, whoa! And then you can tell that the camera's just turning around and the bad blue screen. So flying bikes got me thinking about Galactica 80. And that is what I'm saying. As long as Star Trek never gets to a Galactica 80 level of badness, we're okay. Did you watch that when you were a kid?
Battlestar Galactica?
No, Galactica 80, the follow-up.
I'm sure
when
I did.
they got to Earth.
Yeah, they actually finally got
one
there,
season.
I forgot that's what it was called. Yeah.
Flying bikes.
I just remember the thing I really loved about that, the design
was that
of the
they finally found Earth.
yeah. With the design of those starships, the little fighters that they flew.
No, but I like that, old
hands down was my favorite
Galactica.
thing about it was the design of those ships.
I think the design of the ships, the design of like the Egyptian helmet thing is great. And I like the concept of it. It was just a cheesy TV show that didn't have a huge budget, so they kept reusing the same effect shots over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. But I will say it's not fair to say it was a knockoff of Star Wars because the concepts are totally different. And it could have been good. And then they got the remake, which was awesome, but I thought they went too far away from the central premise. I would still redo Battlestar Galactica, the original, keep it close, but just make it smarter. Yeah. Instead of making it so very different.
So different, right.
That they did.
Yeah.
But anyway.
What I'm hoping is if they do greenlight, this is the potential
Star
of this
Trek Legacy.
Is so great. Star Trek Legacy, if Terry, because we've got Strange New Worlds, where that's where Alex Kurtzman and his people are back in that timeline, fleshing out that story. There's Discovery, which is way in the far future, which is about to do their final season, apparently. But we still got this thing that's following, the immediate time period that follows what we just got. And if Terry Matalas gets control over that timeline, because it's clear he has already got a ton of ideas that were teased in this season. We just got, Kirk's body is in the what is it? What's the name of that? Section 31.
Yeah.
Daystrom Station, whatever it's called. You got Q coming back, and
it's better than ever.
Please, God, please give him the keys. Let him handle us. There's no better.
You do get the impression when you finish that season, which is guided by him, primarily architect and written by him. Mm-hmm. You get the impression he's Trek's Dave Filoni. It's a guy who is not above fan service, but he gives you smart fan service.
Yes.
So,
which is amazing.
And I mean, just good storytelling. Mm-hmm. How hard can it be if you're a huge fan? And I say that I've said before, like if they said Brendan write a Superman, I would be too afraid. So in addition to being an incredible fan, he clearly is not afraid to play with those toys. Like I would write any other DC character, but my favorite one, because I would be afraid to fuck it up.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that's too big a challenge. But good on a Dave Filoni, a Jon Favreau, and a Terry Matalas, because they get it.
And I wish that.
And they're young enough to where they're not about to kick off. It's like they could give us like another decade or more's worth of these franchises.
This is such a really good example of comparing what Terry has done, what Terry Matalas has done in this season of Picard to what like JJ started in the sequel trilogy, where he had all the cool toys. It's like, cool, look, we can have the Millennium Falcon. We got Luke's original lightsaber that he got from his dad. All the stuff's in the movie. How is it there? Why does it get there? Oh, it's just here. Come on, guys. It's just here. That's a story for another time. Mystery box, Terry doesn't do any of that shit. He's like, no, I got a reason why it's there, and it's
and
really
even,
fucking intelligent, you know.
Yes, and even as a smart writer, if it's teased, you get the immediate impression, no, he knows where he's going to go with that.
Yeah,
it's just not. This isn't the place for it. It doesn't feel like Lost, which I loved Lost, but every time they would sit there in interviews going, we know exactly where this is going. And then they prove themselves wrong, where you keep going, you don't. You said that but you have no idea. So all these little cool things you're planting, you have no idea how they're going to pay off. And that's a big mistake in long-term storytelling. And it's the same thing with X-Files. It's like, oh shit, I guess there's a conspiracy we have to explain. And then season after season, now there are bees. Now there's black tar. What are you talking with the black oil? What super soldiers? Please explain. And they never successfully did.
No. God, that comeback season was awful. My God.
It was good seeing the old band back together, and there was like one or two good episodes. Yeah.
Anyway, but that was the thing that, again, the intelligent fan service, that's exactly what we got at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian, where Luke showed up. That's what everybody wanted to see. Figure out a way to get young Luke in there. And that was the most poetic, fitting way for him to show up. And that's why it moves people just crying. It wasn't just that he was there. It was that it made sense that he was there. And it was supported by the story in a way that wasn't gratuitous.
Also,
that's why
it doesn't throw, and it also doesn't throw any preconceived ideas of his character or what his life was like into disarray. So it feels like a continuation. And the reason it's emotional is that we're getting a glimpse of what he did after. You know, it's like Return of the Jedi. It's like he's just starting to build the Jedi school. It's like, yeah, of course he's going after Force sensitives. Of course he's out to find Grogu. I'm all about it, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to rewatch that probably in 15 minutes while I eat a pizza. I'm starting to get hungry again.
Yeah.
It sounds like a plan. Sounds like a very sad, lonely bachelor's plan, but still. I haven't revisited, actually. I haven't revisited any of the Mandalorian or Picard. I tend to watch things once and then love it. And then somewhere down the line, especially if another pandemic happens, then I'm like, time for a rewatch.
Yeah. I do want to rewatch season 3 of Mandalorian for sure, because I'm sure I probably will enjoy it more. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but that was like, I'm sitting on pins and needles the whole time. Like, what's going to go wrong?
Yeah.
So
I want to do quick wrap up of things that you may not have watched, but I know you watched Toe tomorrow. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
And I was really surprised that it hangs. In other words, they're aiming at a second season.
They unfortunately, I don't think they're going to get one.
Probably not, but I really did like it.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they didn't tie it up a little more neatly. And it's like the story is like, okay, the father and son are tight, but the con continues. Now they're conning.
Yeah.
Now they're conning his mom
into
believing that they never got divorced.
And that's pretty good.
Oof. Yeah.
But I still thought, I'm liking it. But if we don't get any more, solid experiment.
Really interesting.
Season 2 of Perry Mason wrapped up this weekend. Holy hell. Do you watch that on HBO?
Is this a remake of Perry Mason?
Oh, you've not known? Oh, no. Yeah, season 2. It was originally meant to star Robert Downey Jr., but he ended up being too busy. So he became executive producer for it because he knew it was this quality project. So he's the executive producer, but it's Matthew Rice, however you pronounce it, like the RHYS name. And it is set in the 30s, like the original novels.
Oh, wow.
And it is one of the most handsome, as in the period stuff is, and it's so well written, so well acted, so well shot. And so season 2 just ended and it's great. Season 1 is like an origin story because it's the making of Perry Mason. So he's not there yet. He's a pretty much drunken mess. And then he's building himself and his world. And by the end of season 2, he's almost the Perry Mason, Both seasons have ended. I was very excited. Both seasons ended with a jazz 1930s version of the original theme from the old TV show. Da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. So it's so great. Highly recommended, but season 2 just ended. It's great. And I just started on Peacock, Mrs. Davis. I've watched 2 episodes of it. You would love it.
Okay.
Because it's crazy hard to explain.
Did you ever see the 12 Monkeys series?
I never watched the series, no.
So I keep hearing about this because that was Terry Matalas. One of the first things he did, but I guess they was a showrunner for anyway. It was something he worked really hard on, was really proud of. And Todd Stashwick worked with him on that, and he was talking up. So yeah, you gotta, if you like PICARD season 3, you gotta watch 12 Monkeys. It's really
remember
good stuff.
Hearing decent things about it, but I think in my brain I was just like, well, what is there to say? The movie is all you need. It's Gilliam. I
had no interest in it previously, but now that I know
now
who
you've
made
become a
it,
fanboy
because I love it now. Like I'm a new fan of Todd. Like, and you think, Todd thinks it's good. I'm in because he's so cool.
You know who Titus Welliver is?
Who
plays Bosch? Titus Welliver, the
plays
actor.
Bosch. Oh,
you know, the long-running Bosch detective show. Bosch.
Sort of. I'm sure.
If you see his face, you'll recognize him. He's been usually a badass or bad guy in a lot of things, but he plays the detective on Bosch, which has been running now for like 14 years. It was ridiculous, like almost Law and Order long. I had no idea until recently because John's like, "Oh, you know, he's a huge comic nerd." I was like, "No," and then it just like finding out about your new best friend, Titus Welliver has done some DC animated voiceover stuff, and I saw him do like a podcasty interview from his house, and the back of it's exactly like our places, and it's just, of course, he has a lot more money, but it's graphic novel central and action figures, and I just love the fact that he's a dude in his probably late 50s. He's probably a little older than me, but he's just being unabashed about, dude, if I could walk in to a Daily Planet set, if I could be I'm like, God damn, I love it. It's another one of those guys like I'm going, good on you, sir. And actually, he'd make a pretty fucking good Perry White. I mean, he'd be the toughest looking Perry White we ever had, but he'd be a good Perry White.
Speaking of the Daily Planet, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you. When I was in New York last November on vacation, first time I'd gone back to spend, more than a few hours there since I moved away. I was wandering around Midtown and went by the Daily News building where I'd seen it before, where, the lobby with the big earth that we see that they used in Superman the movie. I never knew that you could just go in there. So I walked up. I have video of this. I'm walking up, video, and I get there, and you see me realizing that I can go inside, and I was just in awe. Man, I mean, the whole time I was in there and just like,
dude, you got to post that.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show. But it's so cool. And they have got a little museum exhibit there about the history of the building, and they've got some stills from the film behind the scenes of the film. So you can look at.
And they actually have the mummified remains of Rex Reed.
But yeah,
and then there's a security guard going, "You trying to do the Lois Clark walk? You need to go over there."
Seeing that globe up close is so neat. It's like I took a bunch of pictures of it. It's really just gorgeous.
I never made that connection when I was in New York. Again, that was 1988 when I was going to art school. If I had that thought in my brain, I would have done the same thing. Of course, back then I would have had to have like a Polaroid camera to get pictures of it. But holy hell, I would have done a walkthrough of locations, because a lot of it's Calgary. Like the exterior is, what is it? A lot of it's Calgary, Metropolis. But the interior of the Daily Planet,
they did the interiors in there too, apparently. But of the offices, because I obviously when I lived there, I walked past it all the time, but it was always like late at night, so it was of course the lobby wasn't open, so it never occurred to me that you could just walk inside,
dude.
And but when I first discovered it when I lived there, it was just totally by accident. I was just wandering around. I was like, holy shit.
Oh my God.
So
I think the 4K of Superman the movie, is it in theaters right now or is it coming up? I think they may have for Superman Day or something.
So I know they're doing Return of the Jedi.
I don't have my second browser open. Can you look that up? Superman the movie? I want to see it in the theater again, especially now that's all cleaned up. Yeah. Also coming up is a box set of the new 4K remastered Fleischer cartoons.
Ooh.
It's coming out, I think, next month. April 14th to April 26th at various locations.
Ooh.
So tomorrow's the last day.
Oh, God damn it. Well, I'm going to have to buy a Blu-ray player then.
Let me see if my state's listed. Oregon. Oh my God, it is playing in Portland. Jesus. You expect someone would call me? I'm sorry, I got really excited there.
Yeah, I had no idea about this. God damn it.
That's okay. We've got 1 day left. Let me see if it's in Texas.
It probably wasn't showing here.
Oh, wait. No, it is in Houston. Sorry. I didn't even skip down. There's a huge list of cities. It is in Houston.
But where?
But where? Look up in the sky. Who's that guy? What is his name? Superman. If you do go see it, I'll be with you in spirit.
Did you ever come up with lyrics for the Mandalorian theme?
Actually, I did.
I'm curious to know if they're the same as mine.
Let me hear yours first.
Who's the guy going to kick their ass? Here he comes, the Mandalorian. Don't you want him to kick their ass? Yes, indeed, the Mandalorian. Mando.
That's a lot. Actually, the Mando part's almost exactly the same as mine.
Yeah, of course.
But mine was really kind of just, was a little bit more boring. It didn't have as much kick ass. It's like, where is he's over there? Because he's the Mandalorian. He's over there. Now he's over here because he's the Mandalorian.
It's essentially the same.
I know. It's like, he's here. Now he's over there because he's the Mandalorian. What does that mean? But almost any show that comes on, if I watch it enough, I start coming up with dumbass lyrics like that.
Yeah.
I can't help it.
Yeah.
But I will say scoring on that show continues to be amazing. They really lucked out. What's that guy's name again?
Oh,
who came
I
up
forgot.
with the theme?
Something hard to pronounce.
Yeah, it's like Scandinavian something like.
Yeah.
Jorgensen.
Something. I don't know.
He's great. It's such a great peg. And I also have been watching Succession, which is almost done with its final season. Also HBO Max.
I've heard a lot of good things
amazing.
about that.
Oh, it's a great show. And actually, I thought I would hate it when I first started it because all the characters are awful people. And then you realize, oh, it's just really well written, even though they're all terrible people.
Terry Matalas himself has been singing that show's praises.
Yeah, and and Brendan Jones. Come on.
Okay.
You love Terry so much. Why don't you marry him? Do you, Chad Smalley, take Terry Matalas to be your lawful wedded husband? I do. But the whole thing is it has another great theme where it's what makes the show sometimes. It's in there going, God damn, that's good. I don't really have lyrics for that one. It's too hard to work lyrics. But should we wrap it up and talk about what we're doing next week?
That's a good question.
We haven't
really talked about that latest indie trailer.
That's true.
We could dip into some Indiana Jones stuff.
Dippin' Dots, Ice Cream of the Future. We can talk about that.
What's that?
Dippin' Dots, Ice Cream of the Future.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you had that?
No, I've.
They're little candied.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Balls, which are what is it, like flash frozen ice cream. So when you put them in your mouth, they start to melt, and then you get the ice cream.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
I don't think they're great.
So yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Just
and
kidding.
On that note, yes, we will talk all things nerdy. It will come up with something. That's what we always do.
Yeah.
And if prompted, I'll talk more about Galactica 80.
Duly warned.
Apollo and Starbuck were too expensive, so they went with two new guys. It was like when you got the Duke cousins on the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, see, I don't remember any of
that. So
the
two main guys on Galactica 80 are not the two main guys you were following the entire time. However, Adama would still show up with his beard because he now had a beard. Fancy. All right. Well, we'll talk next week. Until then, I wish everyone well.
As do
Don't be a Jonathan Majors or an Ezra Miller. Be good to yourselves and others, people.
Yeah.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, people.